Hey guys, Dov here with another unit highlight. Today we're looking at the Mad Masked Mavens, the Sisters of Slaughter, of course. Pretty underrated unit. You used to see them a lot more and nothing really changed about them, so I don't know why you don't see them more now, but what do they bring to the table? Well, similar, if you've seen my War Dancer video, they bring a lot of similar things to the table. They've got fast speed, which is super key, poisoned attacks as well, which means very few infantry units can escape them when they're chasing. They also have pretty good melee defense, not the best attack in the world, but 20 charge, as well as having murderous mastery and this Trial of Blades here. So in melee for 15 seconds, they'll gain 9 melee attack plus 4 armor piercing damage, and then if they start losing, it will recharge. So the Trial of Blades, pretty nice ability to increase their offensive power and their armor piercing as well. Yeah, weapon strength, they have decent enough AP values, but a nice offensive unit, 20% physical resistance, and of course murderous mastery, quite a powerful buff. Here being led by Malekith on the Lizard Limo, we've got 2, 1 on each flank, 3 Executioners, and 4 Sad Swords. That means, of course, we're up against the Dwarfs, led by Grombrindle. We've got Felix in tow as well, some Bolt Throwers, 3 Bolt Throwers, Dragonback Slayers, Miners, Thunderers, typical Dwarf defensive position, Longbeards here. And in this situation, like, again, with the War Dancers, the Sisters of Slaughter can be used as an excellent flanker, chase routing units, of course, and also just get in, disrupt backlines, disrupt missile units. They'll tear apart anything light, like Rangers or artillery crews, even stuff like Miners. I mean, they have good enough AP values, right, that they can trade pretty efficiently. 57 melee defense as well means in melee they'll take very little damage from any of the dwarf units. Like even Hammerers would still not have the best engagement there in terms of attack versus defense, but Grombrindle trying to protect the backline versus the Karens of Cain and these Dark Riders that also came in here. This is Ice Power playing the Dark Elves. Meanwhile, the other engagements getting underway. You can see here the Argoneth Executioners are within range for these blasting charges to throw. I'm not sure if they are just missing the attack order right now, but definitely would want to throw in there. Here, again, this nice flank attack from these Sisters of Slaughter. That poison puts those dwarfs down to only 26 weapon strength, 19 speed, so very good for chasing those units off. Here in the center, though, good damage on those Thunderers regardless. Looks like the Karens of Cain are able to get that route there. Malekith, of course, on his Lizard Limo, also going to be very powerful here. Throwing out those chill winds to disrupt dwarf lines and do a little bit of damage. Won't do a whole lot, but Sisters of Slaughter, even against Longbeards, aren't going to take much damage at all. Longbeards only 30 melee attack versus the 57 melee defense. You can see the Sisters of Slaughter, despite the fact they have only 5 armor, are taking very, very little damage. They also have a tiny, tiny missile block chance, which also makes them unique from other kind of... They're not really like a dual-wield DPS unit, but you use them in a very similar way. What is it, like 5%? 20% missile block chance, which is kind of hilarious. Murderous Prowess now kicks off, which gives them even more melee attack, up to 46 melee attack over there. Over here on this side, same thing, 46 melee attack, absolutely beating up some Miners. Balance of power is still pretty close, though. A lot of these Executioners have taken some damage, as have the Sad Swords as well. A lot of Dwarf units being routed off, but Ice Power doing very good job chasing here. He gets these Dark Riders to chase those Thunderers, and like these Harpies, also harassing this Thunderer right here. But Sisters of Slaughter out on the flanks so far haven't made their presence too much felt, but like right here, I thought they were actually charging that artillery crew, but instead it looks like they've rear charged the Miners here. Artillery crew is actually being dealt with by Malekith. Executioners are racking up some decent kills, but they actually have lower defense. 34 defense means they'll take more damage from something like Miners, weirdly enough. Other than the blasting charges, of course. Blasting charges will do a lot more to these Sisters of Slaughter, but you can see their nice little fancy dodge roll attacks in, able to quickly route those Miners along with the Karens. And here, this is a pretty good engagement. If you come up against somebody like Gotrek as well, and these Slayers, again, ideal targets due to the fact they have 0 armor. The Sisters of Slaughter can get in there and actually match up very efficiently because of that high melee defense. This unit comes in, they're actually fighting a bunch of Dwarf units at the same time. Dragonback Slayers with that Word of Pain there. Yeah, only 8 melee attack. We've got some Longbeards as well. Also some Executioners here fighting. A nice kind of chaotic, mixed up engagement here. Sisters doing their thing, still tanking out the damage pretty well, and over on this side, continuing to provide that nice flank rear attack here, helping to beat up these Longbeards. Poison is something that the Dark Elves, they have a little bit of, but you don't have too much. And Sisters of Slaughter are a nice way to get that in a relatively tanky, in certain aspects, infantry unit. Speed as well is hard to quantify. Infantry speed is one of those things that's pretty underrated in terms of stats against any faction where you want to chase off their infantry with your infantry. Something like Sisters of Slaughter with that very high speed and poison, they are ideal pursuit units. Kind of like similar, I guess not in role, but the red-crested skinks are kind of similar in that way that they are fast and have poison. Difference being that Sisters of Slaughter are a lot more defensive, and they don't have the best AP values, but you can see there with the stand your ground, they're up to what, like 80-something melee defense briefly? But yeah, balance power pretty clearly ahead at this point. The Sisters of Slaughter have been a pretty big part of that if we check in here. 39 kills, 122 kills on this one that got in and got that nice kind of wraparound engagement. So very, very good stuff. The Executioners, of course, are a big part of this as well. They've got some pretty good kills, 73 kills, 139 right there. So essentially, as per tournament rules, you can't take 5 Executioners, so you do instead what Ice Power did here, take 3 Executioners, 2 Sisters of Slaughter. They're not exactly interchangeable, but I would even argue that Sisters of Slaughter, of course, Dwarfs are very specific, but in all other matchups, I would say Sisters of Slaughter are more universally useful than the Executioners, just because they are much better at supporting a mobile engagement. You know, with that fast speed and poison, they actually are great for, like, following up with a unit of Cold One Knights, or just in general helping to support mobile monster engagements. Here, Grombrindle taking a final charge. Had used that Grombrindle, has no fear, but unfortunately, as soon as it wore off, Felix and the Runesmith run for the hills, and that's it. Very well played to both players. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Yeah, great performance from the infantry. Ice Power here, of course. The Executioners you would kind of expect if they get into combat without taking too much damage. It would do well here, but Sisters of Slaughter, 122 kills, 39. This one didn't actually get that many kills, but just tanked damage very well. Very healthy by the end of that. 67 kills on the Dark Riders as well, chasing riding units, that's great. Nice kills spread across the Harpies also. Sad Swords, pretty sad, but I mean, they're here mostly just to block anyway. 60 kills on Malekith's Lizard Limo also, great to see. For Omega Drive here, the Dragonback Slayer is definitely a bright spot. The Blasting Charges, I think he had some good opportunities there, maybe just didn't have them on fire at will, or missed the attack order or something there. Longbeard's excellent unit. Thunderers didn't really have a good amount of time to stay online, but I really like Bolt Throwers right now, actually, for a cheap artillery piece. These all, even though they didn't get a Chevron, probably paid for themselves if they were just firing purely at the Hargoneth Executioners the whole time, considering they are literally half the cost of the Executioners. Like, if they even kill half the unit, that's worthwhile in and of itself. Yeah, fun stuff, though. Let's go ahead and just quickly talk a little bit more about Sisters of Slaughter in general, make a few comparisons. So yeah, it's probably the best comparisons. I don't know, there's not really another kind of light, I guess maybe Battle Pilgrims is like a lower tier version, like an offensive sword and shield unit. Not something that's super common in the game. Typically those offensive DPS units are dual wielding, but in this case both Sisters of Slaughter and Battle Pilgrims, you know, they fit somewhat into that role, although Sisters of Slaughter are more of a defensive skew. They're faster, significantly faster than Battle Pilgrims, same loose formation, but the poison and the speed means they can catch basically any infantry unit in the game. They've also got just more offensive power, better stats all around, obviously. I mean, you would expect they're almost twice the amount of gold. You would expect them to be considerably better there. And especially the higher melee defense is something that really comes into play. Battle Pilgrims do actually have more HP, though, which is pretty typical Elves to humans. Yeah, more unit models as well, so there's that to consider, but in terms of other kind of more, I guess, directly applicable units, you could even within the roster compare them to Witch Elves, and you see their slight defensive tilt in that way. They have basically the same melee attack, but instead of the Madness of Cain, they've got poison attacks, and of course more weapon damage, much more melee defense, and more HP as well, so just tankier all around for 300 more points. Yeah, I don't know, other units kind of in this class, it's a little bit strange. If you compare to other, I guess, mid to high tier defensive units, like, I guess, Storm Vermin with shields, maybe we look at Chosen as well, and, of course, the best. We didn't see any from the Dwarfs here, but Iron Breakers. Iron Breakers, 100 points more expensive. Similar defensive melee defense, though. I mean, Iron Breakers are a little bit higher, but obviously much less offensive stats. Don't have poison, but have blasting charges, so I definitely think Sisters of Slaughter are very cost-effective if you use them correctly, but of course they are very squishy, especially to magic damage. Something like Grail Knight Charge will delete them from existence very quickly, so you have to be careful. In general, most charges, I mean, from a higher tier cavalry, they have enough defense to shrug off a charge from something like Knight Errant, but compare them to Storm Vermin Sword and Shield, only 50 cost difference there. Sisters of Slaughter, as you would expect, much better stats, but like not quite half the unit models, but like 60% of the unit models of the Storm Vermin. Storm Vermin also have a lot more armor. And interestingly enough, while that Scurry Away is active, they probably have the same speed or close to the same speed. So that's an interesting one. Obviously, Storm Vermin, much less leadership, and yeah, just less stats in general, as we've seen with other examples, but that unit model difference, pretty key. And that's something to pay attention to in general when using elf infantry, but especially this kind of glass cannon-y elf infantry. Sisters of Slaughter are an interesting one because that melee defense is so good. Their armor is just not there, and their HP is very, very low as well. It's quite squishy in that way. Same thing, again, we compare to Chosen. You're going to see the massive difference in HP here. Yeah, 2,000 HP difference. Chosen with shields are just probably a better unit all around. They are much slower, which is, again, a little bit hard to quantify. 150 points more expensive. You would expect that Chaos Infantry should be among the best in the game, though, because that's kind of one of their faction focuses. Elf Infantry tends not to be the best, except for, we've seen Blackguard are probably the best halberds in the game for a few reasons, and they have more HP as well than any other Elf Infantry, and you even compare Sisters of Slaughter to Blackguard coming in at more than 1,000 more HP, so just something to be aware of. But if you can get them in the right place at the right time, they'll do a ton of damage, and that speed and poison allows them to help control and get to that right place and right time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.